talk preschool.
Okay.
I scream. I see we have some fellow Gateway School Board members here, and some of you have been on school board. Mr. Howard, I've known for, oh Lord have mercy, how many years I know this man, North Allegheny School District. The reason when Beth asked me, we're going to get down to the nitty gritty. What is the school board? What do you need to know about the job? This gentleman asked these questions. For 30 years, my job, I was paid to do this. I got to travel the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and I trained people about schools, about school boards. And we're going to talk, first of all, you're part of a process when you're in the school board, and we're going to talk about that process because you need to understand this. This is the Pennsylvania, yes? Did you?
Sorry, I just wanted to have a make sure I have a hand up when you're ready for more questions.
Oh, I trust me.
Because I had it up for a while.
Trust me, I can go on this topic because I've done this for 30 years, and I am passionate about this.
Okay.
Passionate about this. I will get to your questions, trust me. Lois Konashiki was mentioned tonight. She's an advisor. I believe her name was mentioned. I trained Lois before she became a school board member in Hollidaysburg. That's how long I've done this. I want you to understand that when you're in a school board, you're part of an educational structure in Pennsylvania. You're part of this process. And this is something you need to clearly understand. I'm going to tell you right now, I have absolutely no way of knowing what's going to happen in Washington, D.C. But for 30 years, I dealt with Harrisburg, and they scared the bejeebers off of me. So whatever happens in Washington, we now have to deal with Harrisburg. And this is the way the structure is. We're way down here. We're the lawman on the totem pole. We are elected officials. There are 9 on the school board, but you have the General Assembly and you have the governor in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And you have to understand this because you're going to get a lot of stuff from these people. Stuff they'll say you can't do, stuff you should do, and you have to understand who you're dealing with and who these people are. The General Assembly is our elected officials. That's the Senate and the House. They have education committees. I was very blessed to deal with the Senate Education Committee for a very long time. They are in their positions much longer. The House is changing every 2 years. I was never a fan of the House, I'll be honest with you. The Senate is where I always found we got stuff done because they're in those positions longer. The governor, he is in charge of the following things. He picks the head of the Department of Education. That is a political appointment. So when the governor changes, the head of that department changes. There's also something a lot of people don't know about the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and you have to understand this. We have the largest state board of education in the country. That is not the Department of Education. That is a separate entity, and they work in conjunction with each other. There are 21 members on the state board. 4 of them are the people from the education committees, and the other 17 are political appointees. They have no level of accountability to you at all. None. 0. They will do whatever. You have to understand that. I'm telling you the truth. After 30 years of seeing this in action, you have to understand this. When you're in the school board, you have to understand who is telling you to do what and how this all plays out. Then you have something called the Independent Regulatory Review Commission. There are 5 members, political appointees. They are mostly attorneys. They decide regulation. Regulation is not the law. The law comes through the legislature. This is the law. This is the school code. These are hard to come by. This is dated starting back in 1949. This is the actual law for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is why every school board has to have a solicitor. Because you don't want to have to figure this out, trust me. I've read this thing. You'll glaze over in a flash, just get through the first 5 pages. This is the law. But regulation comes through a different process. It comes through this Regulatory Review Commission. They have public hearings. And I will tell you, I have seen our state representatives stand up before the Independent Regulatory Review Commission, and my husband's here, he can attest to that, he was with me, and I have seen our state senators, Democrat, Republican, does not matter, ask questions of these people over here, and they get refused to give them information about what they're doing. They did that with the Keystone exams. Senator Dinniman, one of my favorite senators, who is a Democrat and I am a Republican, love this guy, he's from suburban Philadelphia and was an educator, asked them about the Keystone exams, wanted data information. Guess what? They did not give it to that man. And his cohort, Senator Reichelberger from Altoona and Hollidaysburg, asked for the same thing. He was the chair of the committee. Did not give this man that information. That's sad. That is sad. So I have a perception, and when Beth and I got into this, and she came to me and she said, what do we need to know about this? And I said, I could have gone on for hours about this whole thing, about how this all flows, because the governor, he appoints these people. Then we have something called the intermediate unit. Now, there are 29 intermediate units in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They are the go-between. All of these people up here, specifically the State Board, the Department of Ed, the IRRC, and they disseminate information to us. They do the training. I was trained by them. The gentleman asked the question about how do you learn this? They will train you because you're required, and your secretary of the board will keep the documents showing you went through this training because you have to produce that. And also, if you're up for re-election, you also, and you were re-elected, you also have to go through less hours, but you still have to go through training and fill out the paperwork. So that comes through the intermediate unit. Over here, all by its little self, is the PA School Board Association. We belong to that. But there are 500 school districts, local school districts, and I will tell you, because I've done this so long, not every belongs to this. I can tell you school districts that refuse to belong to this. This is optional. You get your liability insurance. You do get information from them. They do trainings. Some people have chosen not to participate. They do things differently. There are school districts, and I'm not going to go and name them now, that work with their board presidents, and they opted not to belong to this for a variety of reasons. They've had a bad experience, but that's also part of training. Intermediate units and the School Board Association does the trainings for school boards. And then you have your local districts. There's approximately 500 districts. Those are brick and mortar school districts. You all probably know Cyber and Charter are considered public schools. And so therefore, that's not included in this process here. And then you have your 9 school board members, 4 people are up for re-election now, and we have all of this is regulation mandates, dates, and the school code, as I said. School code is the law. Mandates and regulations are bureaucratic suggestions, which technically, if you really look into it, and I've been told this by legislators, you really don't necessarily always have to listen to what they tell you. You got to figure that one out on your own. So that's the state structure. Before we move on to the next thing, does anybody have Bob Howard back here, and I'm picking on Bob because years ago, when I was the director of the educational nonprofit Commonwealth Education, he and I had breakfast a couple times, and we created an organization about Common Core standards. Do you remember that, Bob? PA Against Common Core Standards. We collectively got together and had a group of people addressing the issue of Common Core standards. And those are the academic standards we still live under in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So anyway, does anybody have any questions about the state structure? Yes?
Oh, sorry, not about the state structure.
Oh.
I did want to just quickly say, there's an organization that just started up last year that a couple school board directors called Pennsylvania School Directors Coalition.
Yeah.
Were you just
I know about that. I've been on some of their Zoom meetings.
Okay.
They're very informative. I believe the head of that's from Pine Ridgeland School District, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I have been on their Zoom calls, And I found some of their things really interesting, especially when they had solicitors that were on there from other school districts, because I hear our solicitor, and that gave me a chance to hear other solicitors that I normally would not hear. This last thing on this other page is something really important, and this is something you will get when you're trained. This is a guide to surviving your first year on school board. And I'm not going to go through all these things, and I apologize for the print, but the one where the asterisk is, evaluate continuously. Maybe it's me because I've done this so long. Always, always ask for data and information. We were talking about data information for the election. I'm talking about performance data for the kids. You want to know. Now, I don't want to micromanage the school district. You don't micromanage the school district. You're paying big bucks for your administrators to run the school district. You expect them to do that, right? And your superintendent is the 10th member of your school board. Did you know that? Except he doesn't vote. You vote. He works for you. You work in conjunction with each other. But he has the day-to-day function. But that doesn't mean that you can't look at him straight in the face and say to him, I need to know how our kids are doing. How did they do in the PSSA? How did they do in the Keystone? How do you determine how they're performing? I need to know that because you are head of a multi-million-dollar organization. Millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that we spend, that we have to know how is it working. And that's with everything. Every time they bring a program into the district, you are going to be put in the position of having to approve that program. You need to know what it is. We brought one in, and it was Boys Town. Who all remembers the movie with Spencer Tracy, Boys Town? They have programs for schools teaching about classroom management. And I didn't know, because all I knew was the movie. And I wanted to know about it, and I Googled it, and I looked it up, because I'm a big believer, the more you know about what you're being asked to approve, the better off you are. Well, this is actually a really good program, and I talked to some teachers, and they really like it, and so it's a good program. We need to know that. So when you're asked to approve something, it's going to cost you money, so you're going to ask questions, which leads me to this next thing. I know people in here who have been on school boards or are on school boards. How many of you are not on a school board and go to school board meetings? Can you raise your hands? Okay. If you want to run for school board, the number one thing you need to do is attend all those meetings. As many as you possibly can. If it's televised, that's great. If it's on YouTube or whether they post it on your website, that's great, because you want to understand what they're talking about. What's going on right now that you need to know about, and pay attention to that. If you can go, it's even better, because if your school board allows you time to speak or ask a question, that's a good time to find out. They may bring something up, you may say, ooh, what about that? So you're going to go ahead and you're going to ask a question. Also, now, not every district is the same with this structure, because I go to a church where a lot of I have school board members from surrounding districts to where I'm at in Monroeville, and they aren't structured the same. We have, and we have some folks here from Gateway who are on committees. We're on committees. I'm the chair of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. We have, right now, it's budget time. Every school district is required to do a budget. You should have done an audit. You probably have a budget committee. You can have a curriculum committee. You can have an athletic committee. You can have all these committees. You need to find out, if you don't know something, find out if they have committees and when they meet too, because you can't attend the committee meetings. Yes, you will have to be on a committee if you're in a school board. So keep that in mind. We have 2 meetings a month. We have a study session where we look at the agenda items. Then what we do is we go the next time, the next week, and we vote on this stuff. It gives you a week to ask questions or collect information or whatever you need to do. Plus, there are those committees. So if you want to know what's going on in your district, find out if you have those committees. I will tell you, one of them are neighboring committees. I know a couple people on their school board, and they have committees at large. There is no specific, like, you belong to this committee or that committee, and you don't pick. Anybody can go to the meetings, but you usually say, I want to be on this committee. Well, this particular school district doesn't do like that. They just all come up to the meetings. So find out if, indeed, how does your school district do it? And start attending the meetings, especially right now. It's budget time. Great. Go find out what they're up to with the monies. You have to always remember, too, we have to have the budgets done by June. Unfortunately, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the General Assembly don't always have their time frame consistent with our time frame, so they're still arguing over budgets. And we try to, crystal ball, how much money are we going to get from the state, because we don't know. Because they're behind us, and ours has to be done before theirs, so we're trying to figure out how much money we're going to get from the state to work with our budgets. So budget time is right now. So if you want to know about the money, now is the time to find out about when the budget meeting is. So I strongly suggest, if you want to run for school board and you're interested in that, attend these meetings so you understand what's going on. You know, don't walk in. The mom who ran with me this last time, the reason she ran, we were sitting in the room, it was a school board meeting, and they were talking about one of our elementary buildings. And unfortunately, someone on the board said, how many elementary buildings do we have and where are they located? She had a heart attack. She had a heart attack. No one on a school board should ever ask that question. Why? Because before you get on, you better know where the schools are. You better know how many elementary. Do you have a middle school? What's the configuration of your middle school? How many kids, I mean, what's in the high school? What grades? You know, so she decided to run because that night she almost fell off her chair. She looked at me, she said, I'm sick. She said, I can't believe somebody doesn't know what schools we have in our district. She just was shocked, so she decided to run. Unfortunately, she didn't win, but she tried. All you can do is try. It took me 3 times. Once I did it as somebody was being replaced, and I submitted my resume. Another time, it was a special election. I didn't make it because I live in a Democratic community and I'm a Republican, and in a special election, you run by party. And the next time I did. And having done 30 years of this, I wasn't going into this not knowing. And I don't expect you all to know everything you need to know, because there's things, every day I'm learning something I didn't know about the district before. And I grew up in that district, and my family's lived there since before it was that school district. So you're always going to learn something, but don't get discouraged. You need to really go to the meetings, get involved. You know, people on the PTOs or the PTAs, please reach out to them, find out what they're doing, volunteer in the school. You know, if they have a reading program and you're retired and they're looking for readers, and somebody can go into kindergarten and read a story to them. Those are the ways you make connections, you find out, and it's not like you're being nosy, you're just helping and finding out what's happening in our schools with the kids. So there's a lot of different ways to collect information and understand what's going on. So there's a lot of things. You can look at this. If you have a question about this, I'll answer it. I'm only going to emphasize, again, 9 million times, if you are on the school board, please find out about the data. How's the district doing? How are the kids doing? You know, what kind of vehicles do we have? What kind of testing beside the state testing? And find out what's happening in your district. Does anybody have any questions?